friend of mine who works for a small-town newspaper swears this story changed how she thinks about children's voices forever. She was investigating what seemed like a feel-good piece about a rural church choir when she stumbled into something that still keeps her awake at night. It started in Millbrook Valley, a farming community tucked between rolling hills about 2 hours outside Nashville. The kind of place where everyone knows everyone, and the biggest excitement usually comes from Friday night football games. But in the spring of 2019, something extraordinary began happening at St. Matthew's Lutheran Church. The church itself wasn't much to look at. Built in 1952, it sat on Maple Street with white clapboard siding and a modest steeple. Pastor David Chen had been serving the congregation for 8 years, and like most rural churches, they struggled to keep their youth programs alive. That's why he was thrilled when 12 local children, ages 6 to 14, expressed interest in forming a choir. The first practice was held on a Tuesday evening in March. Parents dropped off their kids around 6:30, expecting to pick them up by 8. Nothing seemed unusual at first. The children were typical small-town kids. There was Emma Rodriguez, age 10, whose family ran the local hardware store. Twins Jake and Sarah Morrison, both 12, whose father managed the grain elevator. Little Timothy Walsh, only 6, whose grandmother never missed a Sunday service. Pastor Chen had studied music in seminary, but admitted he was no expert. He planned to teach them simple hymns, maybe prepare something special for Easter Sunday. The church had an old upright piano, slightly out of tune, and a collection of worn hymnals. But when those 12 voices joined together for the first time, something impossible happened. Mrs. Linda Hoffman was waiting in her car outside, scrolling through her phone, when she heard it. The sound drifted through the church's thin walls and stopped her cold. She later described it as the most beautiful thing she'd ever heard, but also deeply unsettling. It wasn't just harmony, she told my friend during their interview. It was like the voices were weaving together in ways that shouldn't be possible. I counted 12 children going in, but it sounded like there were dozens of them singing. Other parents began gathering outside, drawn by the ethereal sound echoing from the building. Tom Morrison, the twins' father, pulled out his phone and started recording. The audio file, which my friend managed to obtain, is genuinely disturbing when you listen closely. On the surface, it's a simple rendition of Amazing Grace. But there are layers underneath that make no acoustic sense. Harmonies that seem to spiral impossibly high, and low simultaneously, voices that blend so perfectly they create new tones that shouldn't exist. Dr. Sarah Kim, a musicologist at Vanderbilt University, analyzed the recording at my friend's request. Her findings were troubling. The harmonic structures present in this recording are mathematically impossible for human voices to produce. Dr. Kim explained, the overtones suggest resonance patterns that would require precise frequency manipulation beyond the capability of untrained children. Yet, the recording shows no signs of digital alteration. Inside the church, Pastor Chen was experiencing something entirely different. He later described feeling like he was witnessing something sacred, yet terrifying. The children's eyes had taken on a distant quality, as if they were seeing something far beyond the church walls. They sang with perfect synchronization, never missing a note, never needing to breathe at the same time. Their faces were serene, almost peaceful, he remembered. But there was something else there, like they were listening to instructions I couldn't hear. The practice ended abruptly at exactly 8 o'clock. The children stopped singing mid-note, blinked as if waking from a dream, and began chattering normally. None of them seemed to remember what had just happened. Word spread quickly through Millbrook Valley. The following Tuesday, twice as many parents showed up. Some brought friends from neighboring towns. The local newspaper planned to cover the story. The second practice was even more extraordinary. This time, the children performed complex pieces they'd never heard before. Medieval chants in Latin, Gregorian hymns with intricate arrangements. Their voices produced sounds that seemed to come from the walls themselves, creating an acoustic environment that defied the church's simple architecture. Jennifer Walsh, Timothy's mother, noticed her son's behavior changing at home. He would hum melodies she didn't recognize, always in perfect pitch. Sometimes she'd catch him staring at empty corners of rooms, as if watching invisible conductors. He started speaking differently too, she confided, using words a 6-year-old shouldn't know. Old words. Sometimes he'd say things in languages I'd never heard. Similar changes occurred in all 12 children. They became quieter at school, more focused, but also somehow distant. Teachers reported that they seemed to communicate with each other without speaking, sharing glances that conveyed entire conversations. The third practice drew visitors from 3 counties. Someone had posted the Morrison recording online, and it was spreading across social media platforms. music professors, paranormal investigators, and curious onlookers all descended on the small church. But that Tuesday evening, something went wrong. The children arrived as usual, filed into their positions, and began to sing. But this time, their voices created something darker. The harmonies twisted into dissonant patterns that made listeners feel physically ill. Several adults fled the building, claiming the sound was causing them pain. Pastor Chen tried to stop the practice, but the children didn't respond to his voice. They continued singing, their eyes now completely vacant, their faces expressionless. The temperature in the church began dropping rapidly, and witnesses reported seeing their breath in the suddenly frigid air. The singing lasted exactly 37 minutes. When it stopped, 3 of the children collapsed. Emma Rodriguez was rushed to the county hospital, where doctors found nothing physically wrong with her. She remained conscious, but wouldn't speak for 6 days. Pastor Chen canceled all future practices. Several families quietly moved away from Millbrook Valley. That summer, the remaining children gradually returned to normal, though none could recall their time in the choir. My friend tried to interview the children who stayed, but their parents were protective, suspicious of outside attention. The few who agreed to speak described the experience in fragments. Dreams of vast cathedrals filled with thousands of singers, visions of music written in symbols that hurt to look at directly. The church still stands on Maple Street, but Pastor Chen transferred to a congregation in Ohio 6 months later. The piano sits silent now, its keys yellowed with age. Local residents avoid walking past the building after dark, claiming they sometimes hear faint singing drifting from its empty sanctuary. But here's what troubles my friend most about this story. Last month, she received an anonymous email containing a new audio file. It's a recording of children singing, but the timestamp shows it was captured just 3 weeks ago. The location data traces back to Millbrook Valley. St. Matthew's Lutheran Church has been empty for 2 years now. So who exactly is still singing inside those walls? And why do their voices sound so familiar?